When he got down on one knee, the room didn't blur. My heart didn't race. Time didn't stop. None of the things people describe when they talk about getting proposed to happened for me. Instead, I felt something shift, like a thread pulling loose from a tightly woven fabric. We were in his living room, not ours, his, still his. After 3.5 years together, we hadn't moved in together. He said he wasn't ready, and I told myself I was okay with that. But lately, okay had been doing a lot of heavy lifting in my vocabulary. He knelt down slowly, kind of awkwardly. One hand braced on the couch arm, the other holding a small velvet box. Burgundy. Not Tiffany, not new. And the first thing I noticed wasn't the ring. It was the fact that his dog, Daisy, this mellow old retriever with a cataract in one eye, wasn't wagging her tail. She was just sitting there, staring. Like she knew something I didn't. Then I looked down at the ring. I should have been thinking about us, about saying yes, about the fact that I'd waited for this. Patiently, painfully, through years of polite emotional distance and unanswered questions about her. But instead, all I could think about was that ring. It was delicate, gold band, vintage cut, oval diamond, maybe half a carat, classy, simple, familiar. Too familiar. He looked up at me like he was scared, not nervous, scared, like he was afraid I might see something I wasn't supposed to. He didn't say anything cutesy or romantic. Just, I want you to be my wife. That was it. Just that. And then I said yes. I said yes because saying no would have exploded everything I'd built my life around for the past 3 years. I said yes because his parents were flying in next week, and I'd already told my sister he was going to propose soon. I said yes because I wanted to believe that this meant he was finally choosing me. He slid the ring onto my finger, and that's when I felt it. A tiny raised edge against my skin. Not a flaw in the metal, a ridge, like an engraving. Hours later, when I was alone in the bathroom pretending to take a long shower, I slipped it off and held it under the light. The letters were small, but clear. J&M. Always. J&M. Her name was Jenna. My name is Megan. We met in the least romantic way possible, on the new-to-town Bumble BFF group chat. I'd just moved to Richmond for work, mid-level corporate communications at a tech company that pretends it's a startup. My apartment still smelled like new carpet and cardboard when I matched with him on the dating side of the app. His profile was honest, in that quiet, unassuming kind of way. Widower. Dog dad. Learning how to cook again. I remember reading that word, widower, and feeling a weird mix of intrigue and tenderness. It didn't scare me. If anything, it made me think he was emotionally deep, capable of real love. We messaged for a week before we met. He was soft-spoken, funny in a dry way, and never once sent a photo I didn't ask for. After our first date at a local brewery, he walked me to my car and kissed me like he already missed me. The first time I slept at his place, there were still framed pictures of her in the hallway. That should have been my sign. But I made excuses. Told myself grief takes time. Told myself I'd rather be with someone who had loved deeply than someone who'd never risked it. Jenna had passed 2 years before we met. Ovarian cancer. Quick and cruel, he said. They'd been married 4 years. No kids. Just Daisy, the dog they adopted together. I tried not to ask too many questions. I didn't want to be the woman who turned his pain into a test. But sometimes, when he'd go quiet staring at a certain song on his playlist, or when a mutual friend brought up her name at a party, I'd feel it. That chill. Like I wasn't in the room alone with him. I was with her ghost, too. For a while, I told myself that was noble. That love could stretch to include memory. That I wasn't insecure, just adjusting. But then we hit year 2, and the photos were still up. The biggest one, the one of them laughing in front of the carousel at Navy Pier, sat on the bookshelf in the living room, right above the fireplace where I hung our first stocking together last Christmas. I didn't say anything at the time, but I cried in my car after he left for his parents' house. It wasn't the picture itself. It was the placement, the prominence, as if she was the main feature and I was the commercial break. When I brought it up, gently, on a Saturday morning over coffee, he looked at me like I'd asked him to burn down a shrine. She's part of my life, he said. She'll always be. You knew that. I said I understood. I didn't. Not really. But I didn't push. Because every time I pulled away, he'd notice. And he'd compensate. A random bouquet of flowers. A long text at 1 a.m. about how lucky he felt to have me. A weekend trip to Asheville with no distractions. He knew how to keep me close. Just close enough. So I stayed. Because when it was good, it was really good. But now, looking down at that ring, the truth hit me with a force I couldn't swallow. He hadn't proposed to me. He'd proposed to her again. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my sister. Not my coworkers. Not even Mia, my best friend since college, who usually gets a screenshot of every major life moment within 30 seconds. I just wore the ring and smiled. Every congratulations made my stomach twist tighter. I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up at 3:14 a.m., stare at the ceiling, and try to imagine a version of our wedding where I didn't feel like a substitute. One night, I searched her name on Instagram. Her profile was still up. Remembering Jenna Morris. I scrolled through years of smiling selfies, dog pics, travel, shots, and their engagement photo, taken in the mountains. She was wearing the ring. My ring. Same cut, same band, same little chip in the lower setting. Only back then, it looked brand new. I wanted to scream. Instead, I clicked over to our shared family group chat, the one where his mom had just messaged, so thrilled to have Megan join our family. And I noticed something. His sister had reacted to the photo of the ring with a heart. Then underneath, she'd commented, "So glad the ring is still in the family. Jenna would have loved that." I stared at it for a full minute. Still in the family. Still. That word did something to me. I picked up my phone, opened my notes app, and typed one sentence. He proposed with her ring. Then I stared at it. My thumb hovered. I could send it to Mia. Or to myself. Or delete it. I closed the app. But the sentence stayed with me. It took me 3 weeks to say something. 3 weeks of pretending to plan a wedding I wasn't excited about. 3 weeks of letting him hold my hand and touch the ring like it meant something sacred. 3 weeks of walking through Target wedding aisles wondering if I was planning her second wedding or my first. When I finally said it was on a Tuesday. He was chopping sweet potatoes. I was standing at the sink, drying my hands. "Is this Jenna's ring?" He froze. Not dramatically, not cartoonishly, just subtly. Like a file buffering mid-download. He didn't look at me. Just kept chopping. "It was," he said finally. "It was hers, yeah. Why didn't you tell me?" He sighed. "Because I knew how you'd take it." That answer broke something in me. "How I'd take it?" I said. "You mean, like someone who deserves her own engagement ring?" He turned then. "Megan, it's a ring. It's not about the metal. It's about what it means." "No," I said. "It's about what it meant. To her. And to you." He put down the knife and wiped his hands on a dish towel like he was about to give a speech. I kept it because it mattered. Because it represented love. I thought maybe instead of buying something new and meaningless, I could take something that had meaning and continue it. My chest tightened. "Continue it with me?" I asked. "Like I'm a sequel?" He didn't answer. I walked out that night. Took Daisy with me. She didn't protest. I slept on Mia's couch for 3 days. The text started after day 2, Tuesday, 10:17 p.m. "Can we talk? Please?" Wednesday, 1:42 a.m. "I didn't mean for it to hurt you." Wednesday, 8:03 a.m. "I miss you. Daisy misses you." Thursday, 3:14 a.m. "I didn't know how to let go of her, but I don't want to lose you, too." I didn't reply, but I kept the ring. I kept it in my purse, zipped inside a small makeup bag with my backup lipstick and a cracked compact mirror. And on Friday, I took it to a local jeweler. Not to sell it, to ask about the engraving. "Can you remove it?" I asked, pretending it was a general question. The guy, maybe 50, polite, peered at it with a magnifier. "Possibly," he said. "Would leave a small mark, but it can be done." I nodded, then asked, "Can you add to it?" He raised an eyebrow. "Sure," he said. "What do you want it to say?" I paused. Then I said, "Nothing yet. Just wanted to know." He handed it back to me with a small nod. I left the shop, sat in my car, and stared at the tiny box on the passenger seat. Then, for the first time since the proposal, I cried. But not because I was heartbroken, because I finally realized something. I was never going to be her. And maybe I didn't need to be. The night I finally texted him back, I wasn't trying to rekindle anything. I just wanted to feel like I was the one holding the pen now. The narrator of my own life, not just a character in someone else's sad story. The message was short. Friday, 9:12 p.m. I'm not coming back. I just wanted you to know. No emojis, no softness. I watched the 3 dots appear, disappear, then come back again. Friday, 9:14 p.m. Can we talk in person, please? I didn't reply. That weekend, I stayed at Mia's place while she was in Denver visiting her brother. I told her I needed space, and she trusted me enough not to ask questions. She's one of the only people who knows how to give silence as a gift, not a punishment. I made tea. I journaled. I reorganized her spice rack alphabetically, then by frequency of use. I walked Daisy twice a day and started listening to a podcast about female composers no one's ever heard of. And I thought, a lot, about how I let myself become a placeholder, about how I excused the photos, the stories, the lingering grief, telling myself it was noble to hold space for the woman who came before me. But what I'd really been doing was erasing myself in the name of being understanding. The truth? I'd always felt like a guest in his life. A respectful, low-maintenance Airbnb guest, trying not to rearrange the furniture, never overstaying my welcome. And when he gave me her ring, he confirmed what I hadn't wanted to admit. I wasn't a new chapter. I was a footnote. Monday morning, I woke up to a voicemail. Timestamp, 3:14 a.m. Same as always. His late-night regret hour. I almost didn't listen, but curiosity got the better of me. His voice was raw, tired. That half-whisper men use when they're trying not to cry or let on that they already have. I know I should have told you, he said. I knew it was Jenna's ring. I knew it mattered. I thought maybe giving it to you would change what it meant. That it would become yours. A long pause. I see now that was selfish. I wasn't ready. Not in the way you deserve. But I want to be. I want to be someone who can start over. Not just rewrite the past. Another pause. A soft sound. Maybe him exhaling. Maybe Daisy whining. I love you, Megan. But I understand if that's not enough. Click. I stared at my phone for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I called my mom. Now, before I go further, you need to understand something about my relationship with my mom. She's not warm. Not the baby, come here, let me hold you kind of mom. She's brisk, practical. Raised me and my sister with a kind of quiet efficiency. You're not broken, you're just tired, was her version of a pep talk. But that morning, when I told her about the ring, about Jenna, about everything, she didn't interrupt. She just listened. And then she said something I wasn't expecting. Honey, it sounds like he loved her. And maybe still does. But the real question is, does he see you? I blinked. What do you mean? I mean, she said, grief is messy, and it's not linear. But if someone's building a life with you, they need to know who they're building it with, not just what they're rebuilding from. It hit me like a wave. He'd been rebuilding, not building, not with me. That's why so much of our life had felt borrowed. From the playlist on his Spotify that still had her songs, to the recipe folder in his kitchen labeled J&M Dinners, to the throw blanket on the couch she'd knit during chemo, the one I was too afraid to move. He wasn't letting go. He was curating a museum. And I was the new exhibit. Later that day, I went back to his place. I didn't tell him I was coming. I didn't knock. I still had a key. The place was quiet. No music. No TV. Just Daisy, tail wagging slowly, as if even she knew this was a different kind of visit. I walked into the living room and stared at the photo wall. Jenna was still there. Center frame. Navy pier. Laughter caught mid-motion. I didn't take it down. Instead, I walked over to the mantel. Picked up the small ceramic bowl we'd made at that date night pottery studio last summer. The one he said we'd keep for our keys. It was empty. I pulled the ring box from my purse, opened it, took out the ring. Then I placed it, gently, into the ceramic bowl, and walked out. That should have been the end, but endings are rarely that clean. 3 weeks later, I got a package. No return address, just my name, printed in careful block letters, and a Richmond postmark. Inside was the ring, but different. The engraving was gone. In its place were 3 new letters. MLC, my initials. Tucked beneath the ring was a note. In his handwriting. No past, no placeholders, just you. That night, I stared at the ring for hours, and I didn't cry. I just breathed. Deep, steady. I didn't call him. I didn't return it. I put it in a drawer, and for the first time in a long time, I made plans that didn't involve someone else's shadow. Over the next few months, life stretched out in strange, quiet directions. I sublet a 1-bedroom near the river, got a library card, started writing again. Not novels, just little snippets, scenes, half dialogues between imaginary women figuring themselves out. I reconnected with old friends I'd ghosted during my safety bubble relationship years. Went to wine tastings. Said yes to a weekend camping trip even though I hate bugs and everyone knows it. And slowly the static faded. One afternoon, Mia and I sat on my tiny balcony, sipping wine and judging the neighbor's patio decor, when she asked if I'd heard from him. I shook my head. No, and I don't think I will. She looked at me for a long beat, then said, good, and we clinked glasses. A month later, I got an email. Not from him, from his sister. Subject line, hi, this might be weird. The message was short. Hey Megan, I hope this isn't intrusive, but I just wanted to say thank you for loving my brother and for helping him start to heal. I know it wasn't fair to you, all the history, the expectations, but I think you helped him in ways he didn't know how to ask for. I also wanted to let you know. He's started therapy. Real therapy. Anyway, no pressure to respond. Just, thank you. Laura. I sat with that for a long time. I didn't reply, but I smiled. Not because it meant hope, because it meant closure. And that's enough. For now. 6 months passed. 6 months of clarity. 6 months of learning the shape of my own life without him in it. 6 months of figuring out how to sit in silence without making it mean something was wrong. I didn't date. Not seriously, anyway. There was one guy, Jonah, a nurse I met at my local coffee shop. We went out for tacos twice. He had kind eyes and hands that moved with intention. But when he touched my wrist across the table, I flinched. Not because he did anything wrong, but because I wasn't ready. Because some part of me still expected every good moment to come with a ghost in the background. So I stepped back. Jonah was kind. He didn't press. He left me with a note on a receipt that said, when you're ready to be seen, I hope it's by someone who really looks. I folded that receipt and kept it in my wallet, next to a bus ticket I never used, and the key to the place I used to call ours. One morning I woke up to a notification I hadn't expected. Instagram DM request. @LoremWriter wants to message you. I recognized the name instantly. His sister. I hesitated for a moment, then tapped. Hey Megan. I know this is random, but I'm working on a podcast about complicated grief and relationships. Would you ever consider being interviewed? No pressure. And it doesn't have to be about you. It can be general, anonymous. But your story helped me see things differently. Let me know? I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then I typed back, maybe. Can we talk first? She responded in seconds. Absolutely. Here's my number. We scheduled a call for that Friday. I hadn't talked to Laura much when I was with her brother. Our relationship was always polite, surface level, holiday texts, Instagram likes, the occasional family brunch. But on the phone, she was different. Funny. Self-aware. A little cynical in a way that made me feel like I could breathe. We didn't talk about the podcast right away. We talked about everything else. About how our moms both drank boxed wine and cut coupons they never used. About how her brother used to write poems in middle school. Something I didn't even know. About how Jenna used to wear mismatched socks on purpose, just to see if people would notice. It was that last detail that made my throat close, because I'd spent 3 years trying to live up to an idea of her. And now, hearing something so small, so real, it made her human. Not a ghost, just a person. Who lived, and laughed, and wore silly socks. Laura was quiet after she said it. Then she asked, do you hate him? I didn't expect the question. No, I said, but I don't think I ever really knew him either. She hummed. He's trying. He's changed. A little. I didn't ask what that meant, but she added, he talks about you. Not in a weird way. Just Sometimes I think losing you woke him up. I didn't know how to respond, so I changed the subject. We talked for 2 hours. By the end of the call, I agreed to do the podcast. We recorded it in her friend's studio, this tiny sunlit room above a used bookstore, with egg crate foam on the walls and a secondhand armchair that smelled faintly of incense and old coffee. She called the podcast Ghost House, a series about the emotional residue people leave behind in our lives. I didn't use my full name, just M. She didn't introduce me as her brother's ex, just as a writer who'd been through something quietly seismic. The episode was titled Chapter 2, When You Realize You're Not the Main Character in Your Own Love Story. I read a passage from my journal, talked about what it felt like to live in someone else's scrapbook, about the moment I saw my initials inside the re-engraved ring, about the difference between being chosen and being available. When we finished, she hugged me. "Whatever happens," she said, "you took your power back." And for the first time, I believed it. The episode went live a week later. I didn't expect it to do numbers. It wasn't that kind of podcast. But something about it hit a nerve. Within 2 days, my Instagram DMs were full. Strangers, women, men, even a few therapists. They thanked me, told me I'd articulated something they'd never been able to say out loud, told me they'd been someone's placeholder too. One message read, "I moved in with a man who still had his late wife's makeup bag under the sink. I pretended it didn't bother me for a year. Your story helped me forgive myself for walking away." I cried when I read that one. Not because it was sad, because it was proof that pain can be useful, that leaving can be sacred too. And then, one night, it happened. A number popped up on my screen. Unknown. But the area code was Richmond. I let it ring twice, then 3 times. Then I answered. "Hey," I said. Silence on the other end. Then I listened. His voice. Careful. Controlled. "You didn't have to," I said. "I wanted to." Another pause. "I didn't know how much I'd hurt you," he said. "I thought I was honoring her. I didn't realize I was erasing you." I didn't say anything. He went on. Every drawer, every memory, every choice. It was like I was preserving something. But love isn't a museum. You don't curate it. You build it. You show up for it. My throat tightened. Then he said, "I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know." The line crackled, and then he added, "Thank you for telling your truth, even if I wasn't ready to hear it until now." I whispered, "You're welcome," and hung up. I didn't see him again for a while. Not until 3 months later, at a bookstore downtown, the one with the podcast studio above it. I was browsing the poetry aisle. He was buying a birthday card. We locked eyes. He smiled. Small, not expectant. And I nodded. Small, not regretful. We didn't talk. But that night, I got a Venmo. $1. Memo. For the bookstore ghost sighting. I laughed. Sent back the same. Memo. Boo. That was it. No spark, no reignition. Just 2 people who shared a storm and came out on separate shores. A few weeks later, Laura texted me. "I know this is nuts, but the episode's getting picked up for a podcast anthology. They want to feature you, not just audio. They want a written version of your story. Are you okay with that?" I stared at the text, then typed, "Only if I get to write it myself." She replied instantly, "Hell yes." So I did. I sat down, laptop open, Daisy asleep at my feet. Yes, she stayed with me. And I wrote. Not a story about him. A story about me. About what it means to be loved by someone who hasn't cleared space for you. About the courage it takes to leave before someone makes up their mind. About how sometimes healing doesn't look like reconciliation. It looks like solitude. Boundaries. Podcasts. Dog walks. The quiet knowledge that you did the brave thing. Even if no one claps for it. The anthology was published in early spring. They sent me 5 contributor copies and a check that barely covered my water bill. But that wasn't the point. I held the book in my hands like a trophy. Not for what I'd survived, but for who I'd become. Megan. MLC. Not Jenna. Not Jay. Just me. And for once, that was enough. The first time I saw the book on a stranger's coffee table, it felt like stepping into a dream where you're both invisible and completely exposed. I was at a rooftop mixer, the kind where everyone's holding plastic wine glasses and pretending not to be networking, when I ducked inside to find the bathroom. There, in the host's living room, sitting on a stack of New Yorker issues and a ceramic dish of matchbooks, was the anthology. My name wasn't on the cover, of course, but my story was on page 89. I flipped it open, scanned the first few lines, my own voice transcribed, flattened into text. The part where I said, "It's a strange kind of morning, being with someone who loves you quietly, but mourns someone loudly." I closed the book and smiled, not because I was proud, though I was, but because it was the first time I realized the story had moved beyond me. It belonged to whoever needed it now. Spring turned to summer. Daisy started to slow down, her morning walks shorter, her naps longer. I took her to the vet. Arthritis, early stage kidney stuff. Manageable, they said. But it hit me harder than I expected. Not just because I loved her, but because she was the last living link to a life I'd untangled myself from. I worried what it would mean when the time came. What grief would look like when it wasn't someone else's, when it was mine. Mia told me to stop spiraling. You have her now. That's what matters. She was right. I started waking up earlier, taking Daisy to the lake trail on Saturdays, letting her sniff every single leaf if she wanted to. I began tracking small joys in a notes app doc. A pigeon doing a weird hop, the smell of toast, a compliment from a barista on my earrings. Healing, it turned out, wasn't a straight line. It was a mosaic. Tiny chips of color, arranged day by day. In August, I got another DM. Different name this time. @Jenna Morris Foundation. My stomach clenched. I tapped. "Hi, Megan. This might be unexpected. I'm Jenna's cousin, Lydia. I help manage the memorial fund her parents started for ovarian cancer research. I came across the podcast episode you did, and I just wanted to say thank you. You spoke about her, and yourself, with so much grace. I don't know everything that happened, and I'm sure it was complicated, but it meant something to hear her name spoken with love, even from someone she never met. Just, thank you." I read it 3 times, then typed back. "I wish I had known her. I think she was incredible. Thank you for reaching out. That means more than you know." She replied with a heart. I didn't expect that message to linger, but it did. Not because of what she said, but because of what she didn't say. She didn't defend him. She didn't ask questions. She didn't pick a side. She just said thank you. Sometimes closure doesn't come from the person you expect. Sometimes it comes from someone orbiting the same loss in a different way. By late September, the podcast had grown into something bigger. Laura was invited to speak at a conference in DC about grief, memory, and media. A panel on digital mourning and the ethics of storytelling. She asked me to come, not to speak, just to be there. Sit in the audience, maybe grab dinner after. I said yes. The night before the panel, I sat in my hotel room staring at a hotel notepad, scribbling out potential essay titles. The Archive of Us. Ghosts with Wi-Fi. What We Leave When We Love. I didn't know what I was writing, just that something was trying to come out. At dinner, Laura looked different, happier, softer. She was seeing someone new. A woman named Talia who worked in architectural design and had a rescue cat named Beyoncé. I loved that for her. After dessert, tiramisu and coffee, she handed me an envelope. "What's this?" "An early contributor copy," she said. "Next season. We're publishing transcripts again. Yours made the cut." I opened it. Inside was a bound galley of Ghost House, Volume 2. My story was the opening chapter this time. Title: Still Life with Wedding Ring. She'd written a dedication in the front. For M, who taught me that some ghosts need to be remembered and others need to be released. You did both. I almost cried. Instead, I hugged her and whispered, "Thank you for giving me back my voice." She whispered back, "Thank you for using it." A week after the conference, I ran into him. Not accidentally. I was walking Daisy past a bookstore cafe when I saw him through the window. Alone. Reading. The same worn copy of a book we'd once read aloud together in bed. The Left Hand of Darkness. I paused outside. He looked up. Our eyes met. He smiled. Stood. Walked to the door. "Hey," he said gently. "Hey." Daisy perked up, wagged slowly. She remembered. He crouched, scratched her ears. She looks older, he said. So do you. He chuckled. Fair. We stood in silence for a few seconds. Then he said, I saw the anthology. My breath caught. You read it? He nodded. I bought it. Twice. Once for me. Once for my therapist. That made me laugh, unexpectedly. We sat on the bench outside. Not close. Not tense. Just present. I'm glad you're writing, he said. I'm glad you're healing. He nodded. I didn't know how to love you properly, he said. Back then. I thought love was just memory plus time. I didn't realize it needed presence. I looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. You tried, I said, but I was loving in real time, and you were loving in rewind. He smiled, sad and warm. That's a good line, he said. Put it in your next book. We laughed, and then we hugged. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't loaded. It was a chapter. Closed, not torn. We said goodbye. And this time I didn't look back. The night I turned 32, Mia threw me a party. Not a big one. Just 12 people, a homemade cake, 2 acoustic guitars, and way too much rosé. After the candles, someone asked what I wished for. I paused, then said, to keep becoming someone I don't want to lose. There was a quiet beat after that, then applause. Not the kind that says, congrats. The kind that says, we see you. That night before bed, I pulled out the ring. The one with my initials. I still hadn't worn it. Not as jewelry, not as a memory, just as a keepsake. I held it in my palm. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I walked to the window, opened it, held the ring to the light, then whispered, thank you, but I'm done carrying you now. And placed it in a small cedar box, next to the receipt from Jonah, the unused bus ticket, the folded hotel notepad from DC, and a photo of Daisy and me, just us, from the trail. 6 weeks later, Daisy passed in her sleep. I held her for an hour before calling the vet. She was warm, peaceful, curled against my side like always. I cried until my chest hurt, then lit a candle, and whispered, thank you for staying with me, for letting me be yours. I scattered her ashes on the trail, at the bend where the sunlight always hit just right, where she used to pause and sniff the breeze like it was telling her secrets. I went home, poured a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and started writing again. The next story wasn't about him, or grief, or rings. It was about a girl who kept planting seeds in places where people told her nothing could grow. And how, one day, she looked around and realized she'd built a garden. The first time someone stopped me in public because of my writing, I was wearing mismatched socks. It was unintentional. One navy, one gray. But when the girl at the farmer's market touched my arm and said, are you MLC? The one from Ghost House? I glanced down at my feet and laughed. Yes, I said. That's me. She teared up. Like, really teared up. Then hugged me. A long, shaking hug from someone who didn't even ask if she could. She just needed it. You helped me leave, she whispered into my shoulder. He kept saying her name in his sleep. For 3 years. I thought it made me a bad person to want something that wasn't haunted. I didn't say much, just held her. Because sometimes that's all you can do for someone at the cliff's edge. Remind them they're not jumping alone. She gave me a bracelet. It was woven, handmade, cheap. I wore it for weeks. Months passed. I wrote more. Fiction, essays. One short piece that went semi-viral on Medium titled, The Girlfriend After. How to Love Without Competing with a Ghost. I received messages from widows, from exes, from people who admitted, with trembling honesty, that they'd given secondhand love to someone who deserved first-run affection. I was no longer a woman who'd been proposed to with another woman's ring. I was a writer, a voice. But more importantly, I was a woman who knew what not to accept anymore. And that was worth more than 1,000 well-lit engagements or Pinterest-perfect love stories. One night, I was invited to speak at a women's conference on narrative healing. I stood in a room of 200 women and told them the story of the ring, the bathroom light, the engraving that wasn't mine. And I ended it with this. If you've ever been loved in lowercase letters while someone else's name is still capitalized in their heart, that's not your failing. That's your freedom knocking. Open the door. The applause was a wave. Not loud, but steady, like rain on a roof. I'll never forget that sound. In the spring, Laura called. I have something for you. What is it? A letter. From her. I stopped breathing for a second. From Jenna? She nodded, then remembered I couldn't see her and said softly, Yeah, it's not what you think. Not about him. It's just a letter. She wrote it before the end. She left letters for a few people. And she left one for me? Laura hesitated. No. She left it for whoever comes after me. I sat down. It was a scanned page. Handwritten. Dated 4 months before she passed. I read it slowly, like it was breathing. To the woman who will someday love him. I hope you're patient. I hope you're curious. I hope you ask questions, even when he doesn't have the words. I hope you don't let him become a museum of me. I hope you make new playlists and rearrange the furniture. I hope you laugh louder than I did. You're not stealing anything. You're not second. You are a new story. And if you're reading this, it means he's trying to turn the page. Please help him, but don't lose yourself doing it. With love, from the past to the future, Jenna. I cried for a long time. Not because it hurt, because it healed something I didn't know was still cracked. Her letter wasn't a blessing. It wasn't permission. It was a bridge. And I'd been standing on the edge of it, afraid to cross for too long. One night, I took the ring out again. Not because I missed him. Because I missed me. The version of me who had once thought that love meant waiting quietly in someone's hallway until they were ready to open the door. I held the ring, then slipped it on. Just for a moment. Not as a promise, as a memory. Then I stood, walked to the kitchen, and dropped it into a small ceramic bowl. Not the one he made, the one I had made during a solo pottery class 6 weeks earlier. A lopsided, uneven little thing glazed in deep plum, a color I'd never worn until recently. The instructor said it wasn't aesthetically perfect. I told her that's what made it mine. 3 days later, I got a package. No note, just a necklace. A small charm in the shape of a house. The word ghost etched into the back. From Laura. Inside the envelope, a sticky note. You turned the lights on. Love you forever. L. I wore it every day. It reminded me that sometimes we don't have to evict every memory. Some of them can stay, if we're the ones choosing where they live. Later that summer, I met someone new. At a bookstore, of course. He asked if I was the garden girl from the Ghost House essays. I laughed. He blushed. Sorry, that probably sounds weird. No, I said. It sounds like you read carefully. He did. His name was Theo. He had calloused hands, warm eyes, and didn't flinch when I told him my story. All of it. He said, we all carry someone. I just want to make sure you're carrying you first. Our first date lasted 5 hours. No ring, no ghosts. Just 2 people in real time. He didn't try to be a blank slate or rewrite anyone else's story. He just brought his own. And let me bring mine. We're not engaged. Not yet. But we've planted things together. Real plants. Basil. Mint. A sad little lavender bush that refuses to bloom. And every morning we sit on the stoop with coffee and water our mismatched pots. No big gestures. Just routine. Care. I write. He sketches. Daisy's collar still hangs on our front door, a reminder of the dog who saw me through the hardest silence of my life. And above the sink is a photo. Not of me. Not of us. But of a quote. Typed on a post-it. You are a new story. A sentence that saved me. That reminded me I didn't need to be her to be whole. I only needed to be me. On purpose. Out loud. Without apology. And maybe that's the love I'd been looking for all along. Not a ring. Not a rewrite. But a garden where no one's buried. Only blooming. Was I wrong for leaving the ring behind instead of making it mine? Would you have kept it? Or walked away like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you'd do if you found someone else's initials engraved in the life you were supposed to call your own. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.